we are, ladies and gentlemen, on Whirlwind, and in the upper left-hand corner, we have our representative from Complexity Gaming. It is TriMaster, winner of game number 1. He's our pink Terran player. He's going up against our representative from Root, down here in the bottom right-hand corner, our purple Terran player, Masa.
All right. We've got cross positions on top of this. This is bound to be an interesting game. So, talking about Whirlwind, it's massive. A lot of players talk about how good mech is on this map because you can kind of just expand very slowly forever because basically one of the problems that mech actually encounters is the ability to expand faster than their opponents or even to be able to keep up with them. Because you have to be safe, you know, against attacks. Whirlwind is so big, in fact, which you might think is actually like bad for mech because it's hard for them to move out or something, but it does lend towards the fact that if, say, you know, TriMaster, we got mech in the top left, if Masa wants to move out with some sort of a bioforce, it's a long trip. He's got to make his way across the map, and that gives TriMaster plenty of time to get into position to be able to crank out those extra 3 or 4 tanks that he's going to need to hold off such a push. Just makes attacking on this map a little bit difficult until you're into the really late stages of the game.
Now, TriMaster's played a little bit quicker than I've expected in both of the games we've seen of him so far. And, whoa, and way quicker on this one. Okay, so Whirlwind's a very large map. I expect out of both players to see what we're actually seeing from Masa. Command center first, go very economical, play towards the later game, move into that mech strategy that you were talking about before, which we see so often on this map. But TriMaster, once again, going to open up with some form of early tech. Now, what path is he going to move down? On this map, Banshees are pretty decent option because it is a little bit harder to try and get a quick bio strike at the very beginning, just due to the fact that the walk distance, as you mentioned before, is so freaking long. Yeah. It does give your opponent time to prepare.
It really does. It's going to be interesting to see if Masa's going to be able to hold this off. You know, he's going to follow up with 1 barracks. Will there be a second? Will it be 1 gas in a second barracks? Or will he try to play extremely greedy and go for 2? Yeah, I think this is the right route, and it looks like what Masa's going to go for. He'll get the gas here, and should go for a factory behind this, but we'll have to see, you know, what information he's able to obtain. 2 racks behind this would be beautiful for him, be able to get some of those units to counter whatever TriMaster's going to be throwing at him. Of course, it is more than likely we're either going to see some sort of drop play involving Hellions and Marines, or we could see single lone Banshees with a quick expansion behind it. Remember, it's still a big map. They don't expect TriMaster to like go for some crazy cloak play or something.
That's right, and he's already shifting this away, so we could see that reactor here in just a bit. There's the 50 gas, there's the reactor dropping down, so could very well see that drop play here in just a bit if Starport follows this up. Now, back on Masa's side of things, just the single barracks for now, but investing in that gas right away. TriMaster gets up there, sees immediately that it's command center first, and knows pretty much what's going on.
Yeah, this is a pretty big main, too. That's definitely a possibility, as the TriMaster's going to be actually chasing away the SCV, seeing that it's heading towards the right spot. Now it was Masa, actually, who sent the scout to the top right first, correct?
Yes, I believe so. We can actually take a look at their individual vision, but...
oh, no,
okay, it was actually TriMaster. TriMaster got out there with a very early SCV scout.
All right, so he wanted to see exactly what his opponent was going for, maybe so he could cater his build a little bit towards it. Masa, on the other hand, didn't really seem to care, but he is going to get a glimpse of some Marines right now. That's going to send him back. There are lots of Marines being made right now, and a starport going down.
So an interesting build from TriMaster. Obviously his expansion is going to be very far behind his opponent, and I don't know if what he's doing now is a reaction to what he saw before, given that he did know that it was a command center first. Ooh, forced to call down supplies, unfortunately, and that hurts as he wants to be able to get any little economic advantage back into this game that he possibly can. But so he sees the command center first. Maybe he was planning to put down the quick starport and try and do some damage. Maybe he was planning to expand out of this, but it still seems like an interesting way to go about things because he's neither all that quick with his expansion, nor is he all that fast with his tech, which is actually just behind now for Masa.
Well, I really like where Masa chose to build his 3rd command center. Up here towards the top, you know, these are very big main bases, and this is a position where if the drop play does come in from TriMaster, Masa's going to be privy to it pretty quickly. And, you know, he'll lose the SCV perhaps that's building the command center, but the CC will be done by the time any such pressure would arrive from TriMaster because, as we were talking about, how large this map is, a lot of times this play will actually kill the SCV building the command center, and you can force the cancel on your way out. In this situation, TriMaster won't be able to do that. He's going to be moving out across the map just now.
Yeah, so starting to chug across the map, but already Hellions are ready to greet this force. They'll do a little bit of damage here. I mean, it'll scare TriMaster, force him to micro a little bit, but there shouldn't really be many units lost on either side. Oh, except Masa's doing a great job with control there. Backs away, just loses one Marine of his own, kills 2 in return, and singes quite a few more. So he'll back up at the moment. We do have a medevac being produced right now, along with relevant stim upgrades for bioforces for Masa on the way right now.
And this is what we're talking about this map just being so huge. I mean, TriMaster, does he have 6 Hellions on the field right now? Or no, he's got 5.
Yeah.
But they're streaming their way across. Masa is just, he's not in a difficult, he's in the easiest of easiest defensible positions right now.
Yeah.
Should hold off this pressure with complete and utter simplicity.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, TriMaster has done a pretty good job with this control so far. Attacking up a ramp into that many Hellions is always a difficult proposition. And this drop is going nowhere. I mean, it's going to try and poke. All it's trying to do is scare his opponent. He doesn't really have a follow-up to this. It's not like he's trying to duck him with anything else. If he actually drops those down, I'd be very surprised. And indeed, he's not going to.
Yeah, that Viking, though, is going to be able to chase this medevac for a little while. Hellions will be dropping off on the ground. And, of course, that will allow them to be safe. But behind this, TriMaster, what's he going for? I see a 3rd base going down. 2 more additional barracks. Stim is a long way off. Both players looking like they're going to be going for bioplay this game, however.
That's right. And Masa does actually have an opportunity to try and get in there with a little bit of a strike if he so desires. Now, not too much pressure is going to happen here. He's a little more worried about getting his bases saturated, his infrastructure in place, and playing towards a little bit later game. But, you know, everyone likes a little bit of drop play, a little bit of pressure every now and again. Unfortunately, Masa's really supply blocked. Only building 1 supply depot right now, too. But you can see putting down 5 barracks because there was that big of a glut of resources to spend.
Yeah, and he's got to feel incredibly safe at this position right now. So, okay, actually, there are the 1-1 upgrades just starting. Because TriMaster invested a lot into that early attack. And he's not going to be following it up with a big play. He needs to macro behind this. Masa knows this, so he's going to take this opportunity to try to tech up, build as many production structures as possible, work on his upgrades, and really just gear up for, you know, 5 to 6 minutes from now.
All right, nice job picking off that Hellion there, and you're absolutely right. I mean, we're going to see a big play after this. This is an awfully lot of Hellions that are on the map, though, and we'll see if they can get anything done for TriMaster. That will certainly prove to be pretty effective against a relatively marine-heavy composition if Masa decides to go that route. Of course, the tanks are already being added on right now, and he's heading on 3 more barracks. We're at the 10-minute mark, and there's something like 9 barracks on the map now for Masa. Yeah, exactly 9.
Yeah, this is really looking like Masa's going to go for an extremely large 3-base timing attack. I mean, with all this money, he's going to be churning out Marines as fast as he can possibly bring in minerals. I do not expect a quick 4th command center or anything of that nature because he's not going to have the minerals for it. He's got more than enough buildings to produce nonstop. This is also going to let him slack a little bit even on his macro. He's going to be able to focus entirely on these engagements as we will be moving towards that time. But hold that thought, a tank is getting picked off in the middle of the map, and that's a nice small victory that TriMaster is going to be able to secure. In fact, he's going to get here into the mineral line and take out quite a number of SCVs. 3 mules going down as well. This is huge for TriMaster.
Yeah, how about a nice big engagement? And at the same time, the Viking or the Marine, I forgot what it was, but actually drove away the Hellion drop that was happening at the exact same time. So not only is he doing damage in the front, he's not going to take damage behind this. Now, the one thing, though, that Masa has going for him is that he still has a ton of workers available to him in his other 2 bases. He hadn't switched over a lot of them yet. He got to the 3 command centers earlier, and he does have a really nice infrastructure. That being said, TriMaster just did everything he needed to in order to make his way back into this game.
Completely. He lost these Hellions, but even the trade of all those Hellions for that tank and Marines, well, I guess he really just chased it for the tanks, let's be honest. But
right.
In that situation, he cleaned up additional SCVs as well. So Masa making a tough spot now, making himself into a tough spot as TriMaster has killed quite a few units, a number of workers, the medevac going down as well, as you mentioned. Kevin, TriMaster is now in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, he's in a pretty decent spot. His infrastructure is slightly behind Masa's. You can see that he's trying to catch up now with barracks. He's eventually, with these next 4 that he's adding on, going to be at the number that Masa's already at. And he's only producing tanks 1 at a time, so Masa still has the advantage there. Let's take a look at upgrades. Looks like it's 1-1, no 2-2 on the way for both players now, but armories are going to finish up at about the same time.
I'm just wondering at this point, is Masa going to be able to, actually, can we look at both players' worker supplies?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Because, you know, yeah, TriMaster, I mean, he's got less production facilities. As long as he keeps spending his money here, Masa has all these production facilities. He can't use them. He's got so many barracks sitting around, but he simply just doesn't have the money to output the units that that his production structures are capable of doing. So, I mean, look at that. That's a great example right there. We have 3 barracks that aren't producing anything. You know, now there's still 2. Oh, my goodness. There's even more than that as we select them all. TriMaster, on the other hand, you know, he's got a much lower production count in terms of buildings, but he's still managing to spend all of his money quite flawlessly.
He is, but we can see, though, that Masa was able to recover pretty nicely off of that, even if he can't use all of those right now. And a large part of why he couldn't is because he was actually going up to a third factory so he can triple produce tanks. That's how he's choosing to use his money. But he will have the ability, with the extra barracks that he had built himself before, to reproduce this army very quickly in the event of a big attack. And TriMaster has actually decided to just give up tanks altogether. Well, as I say that, of course, he produces the first tank that he has in the past 3 minutes in-game, but he's going for largely biocomposition now, adding on a bunch of Marauders in addition to that Marine force.
And this is a pretty good decision. It's a large map that can highly reward you for using mobile forces. TriMaster, though, is going to need to be extremely on point when it comes to harassing and things of that nature. He's not going to fare very well engaging heads up against Masa's army. Masa is producing, as you were saying earlier, 3 tanks at a time. Right now with nothing in the production tab, but his tank count will always be above TriMaster, so Masa needs to, so TriMaster needs to make sure he gets in for those drop plays.
Right, and how many games have we seen where a player, as that medevac does go down, TriMaster's able to pick that off? How many times have we seen the player that plays the heavier biocomposition drop, annoy the player with the more mech composition, with the more tanks, and annoy them enough to where they just run headlong into a vastly inferior amount of tanks, but well positioned, and they throw their whole army advantage away, and then the bio player wins.
But so smart here out of Masa, reading that TriMaster was coming in for this attack. Just based on that scan, he actually did not get vision of TriMaster's army there, yet he moved his units into the correct position in order to counter that attack out of TriMaster. Very intelligent play here from Masa.
And more often than not, TriMaster would have been able to look at that engagement and be like, all right, I just lost a ton of Marines, but at least I got a tank with that, you know? I don't know if he exactly knows how many tanks that Masa has at his disposal, though. Continuing to triple produce them, already at 9, triple the tank count of TriMaster for now. So all this that's sitting, or that's running up to the front to do damage, is only a portion of Masa's true forces.
Yeah, TriMaster is going to be in for a tough spot here holding this position. Look at the number of tanks here out of Masa. This is not the position you want to be in as a Marine Marauder medevac player on the defensive with your base shelled up. No, you want to be active out on the map, capitalizing on that mobility that your unit composition has to offer. What does TriMaster do here? Maybe load up into your medevac to drop on top of those tanks, because he cannot engage this army straight up. Actually, medevac is dangerously low, but it won't be taken out.
You're right, though. I mean, he's got to do something to be able to maximize the effect of the mobility of his forces, but he just can't do it. TriMaster is caught in a really tough spot, and now look at this. There's this space where Masa can actually move his forces up and around the side. TriMaster comes back and defends it, but it forces all the SCVs off, and now TriMaster is on a much more limited economy. Yes, he has this new base running at the top right, but that's only got a couple of mules on it. No SCVs have transferred over.
Yeah, and a huge reinforcement wave just arrived for Masa. The SCVs that haven't transferred over yet will be soon, because TriMaster cannot hold this base. He's going to try Marauders fighting against Marines, and well, if you've ever hit F12, you know that's a counter. Command center is likely going to go down here. We'll see. TriMaster's coming in with some reinforcements, and he will at least thwart these for the moment.
That's right, but Masa still has this great position, and behind this, he's defending against the counterattack. We talked about his tank count. He has 6 tanks back at home. That's an astounding amount. He's on decent upgrades, too. I think, it looks like TriMaster actually just starting 3-3 now, so both players are pretty even at the moment, but with the weapons upgrades on the tanks, with the vastly superior position, looks like TriMaster's going to try and break out of this right now, but again, even if he kills this entire force, he's going to inflict he's going to have inflicted upon him some pretty big losses, and that was still only a small portion of Masa's true force.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, that was a huge victory for TriMaster, let's not be mistaken, but where does he go from here? He needs a fantastic engagement here in a moment against these forces of Masa. Masa is going to be actually getting in here. He does not manage to snipe out any tanks. No siege, though, from TriMaster quite yet. Now going down, 1 tank falls. Second tank is taking a heavy fire. It's going to go down as well, and Masa is now pretty secure in this position. He's got 4 tanks to TriMaster. Actually, TriMaster's still holding on to 4, but he's about to drop on top of this tank down in the bottom left. Marines need to target down that medevac. They're not going to do so, and the tank goes down.
And that's actually very cool, too, because that's a pretty critical spot on this ramp that he actually needs a hold, or at least have vision of constantly, and then drops down his remainder of Marines directly into the fire of a couple of tanks, which was a little bit of an interesting decision. TriMaster going to try and break this spot, too, and Masa actually losing some more tanks here, so TriMaster's done a nice job of being able to engage these forces, but now all of his tanks tanks are out of position. He doesn't have any sieged up yet for the second push that comes with this third base.
He doesn't, but he does have one tank arriving in time. Nice target fire here out of TriMaster on those tanks. Second one, not as much. We'll be falling back now. Marine count is extremely low for Masa. He's going to try to continue pushing up the ramp, and that should be it for these tanks. TriMaster immediately loading up that medevac, and he's going to drop these Marines down, take that out, and chase down. Actually, this medevac is pretty critical if Masa is going to lose that, but TriMaster not giving pursuit.
So we're kind of at the crux of what Marine tank versus Marine tank is, especially defensively versus aggressively. Masa just has a very tough time breaking up against a vastly inferior force, even if it's down in upgrades or whatever the case may be. As long as you have that positioning there, you're going to be able to hold out for a while. And TriMaster took advantage of every single attempt that was given him. Whenever Masa threw up units to trade, TriMaster traded very cost effectively. So even though he's still down in overall supply, and Masa's still in a little bit better position in this game, actually quite a bit better position in this game, TriMaster's done a great job of surviving.
He has, and at this point, TriMaster, now he's got his economy back on its feet. He's actually pulling a fair amount of gas, so maybe throwing in a Banshee here or there for those positions when, there's tanks with not as much Marine support. Wouldn't be the worst idea for TriMaster, since he really, isn't really working on medevacs or anything of that nature, and he does have a lot of gas to come. But right now, well, he's got 3-3, and he's managing to snipe out some tanks very effectively with it. And this is what we saw actually at IPTL 5 with Colt versus Bomber. You can get small groups of Marauders to get in there and poke those tanks. Now that they've got 3-3, they can do tremendous damage.
All right, well, here comes TriMaster over to the right-hand side. Planetary Fortress sits waiting for him, and now the rest of the forces of Masa are moving over, and TriMaster knows that that is going to be a little bit more difficult proposition. Nice job, though, by Masa to actually drop around behind this base. Looks like he forced off the SCVs. Didn't really kill much, but disrupts the economy again while he gets everything in position to defend his own fourth.
All right, Marines stimming down, but both players on 3-3 now. The Marine count for TriMaster is much lower, but at the same time, we have the tanks taking damage. Oh, those tanks are going to get taken out, in fact. But overall, Masa actually manages to hold on to these as he unsieges them and cleans up the very few units that were on top of him.
Okay, so TriMaster's doing whatever he can at this point. He needs to find a way to rally back and limit the economy of his opponent, but unfortunately hasn't been able to break through. And that's really the great advantage for Masa, because even though he threw units away before, he was still able to take out a little economy, or deny a base here or there, and continue to stretch his lead. And that's where we find ourselves. Masa's maxed out, TriMaster's not, but TriMaster still has a big enough army that Masa can't just run headfirst into it.
Yeah, but Masa's had map control this entire game, and and with this matchup, that's so important, because anytime that Masa loses a huge engagement and a ton of siege tanks die, well, TriMaster has to cross the whole map first, and that means that by the time he arrives, Masa has too much stuff for TriMaster to be able to do any severe damage to counter that. But Masa, on the other hand, in always having map control, every time TriMaster has a bad engagement, he loses economy.
All right, well, here comes Masa now, going to start rolling his way up the front once again. Headlong into a lot of siege tanks, but he's got so many forces that he can still get on top of the tanks, pick off 3 of them to begin with, and it looks like that's actually going to be enough, finally, to be able to push this army back, and Masa now has a completely undefended base. A few units are going to try to run up from TriMaster, but already Masa's repositioning his tanks, picks off that command center, and that all she wrote for TriMaster. Yeah,
not too many options left here. He is still holding pretty steady in supply, but he's down to just 3 bases, only 1 mining base, and that's getting very low. He is doing a drop, though, down in the bottom 6 o'clock position. Will delay a little bit of mining here, but ultimately he's going to need to do so much more than just this. He is coming in actually on the eastern side with a drop as well. We'll see what damage he can get done with this. On the mineral line, are there any units close by? No, actually, but this is a planetary, so all he's going to do is delay a little bit of mining.
And this orbital command will eventually be repaired up to full, or at least so I hope. Masa going to go ahead and put down a ton more command centers too, so pretty much everything is working out pretty well. Looks like this drop finally gets cleaned up, but of course, with the planetary fortress there, not too much more damage would have been done to the SCVs. It would have just been registered and lost mining time. And we can see that impressive tank count.
So many.
15 tanks there. That's 45 supplying tanks, and that's absurd when you think of that as a total amount of your supply for your overall army.
Well, TriMaster has a nice little siege set up, but it won't be long until it's broken by Masa.
There are 20 on the field right now for him, though. 20 tanks. He's almost getting to the point where that's going to be too many, honestly.
Well, you just pull SCVs and...
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you get to the point where you either leapfrog them forward or you run headlong into their opponent's forces, but...
or write GG with them. I like that one, too.
Oh, I like that, yes.
Personal favorite, yeah.
But, 20 tanks running into a relatively small group of Marines, if they're not sieged up, will actually dispatch those very quickly. But that gets painful.
Yeah, I almost want to say that Masa can AWOC this. But Trymaster's going to actually fight here, and he's going to lose all these Marines very quickly.
All right.
That was...
He did kill a lot of tanks. He just killed 8 tanks, I believe, but that's nowhere close enough. That would have been a good trade a little bit before when his economy was in check and when he had pretty decent infrastructure to go back with this too. But now Masa's continuing to push forward. Looks like there's a total of 4 tanks up. Trymaster actually losing. The medevac that was overhead dropping a few units down. Masa just going to drop directly on top of the tanks. Of course, then they kill themselves.
Got to commend Trymaster here, though, as the GG goes down, guys. He is going to fall, and Masa ties up the series.
Yeah, I mean, Trymaster did a really nice job of defending well, positioning his units in the right way, surviving when all hope seemed lost a couple of times, actually, over the course of the game.
I mean, he was definitely behind in the early game, and suddenly he wasn't in as bad of a position by any means after that first engagement. But overall, just not getting himself enough to run away with that game. Next called out here from Complexity.
That's right. Okay, if you're just joining us right now, we mentioned before that these games are a little over a week old. They were played just before the minigun transfer to Root. And so Minigun is coming out next for Complexity. Root Minigun coming in for Complexity right now. So
to take down Root.
Yes.
For Root. Guys, we are going to cut to our daily news now and then a quick commercial break. So don't go anywhere. Series is currently tied 1-1 right now. Root and Complexity. We'll see you guys after the break.